One day a young lady saw a crinkly, bent-over old man in a rocking chair on his porch. She called out to him and said, "Sir, what is the secret to your old age?" "Well, honey," he said, "I smoke 10 cigars a day. I drink a case of beer every week, and I never eat vegetables." "That's amazing," the young woman said. "How old are you?" 26. Steve's dad was a machinist for a company that made lasers. He taught his son how to work on electronics like televisions and radios in the family garage. It was clear from early on that Steve was a smart kid. Surprisingly, he dropped out of college. Along the way, though, he met a couple of guys and they created a little startup company in the garage of Steve's parents. Of course, Steve's full name was Steve Jobs, and he went on to help create the information age and revolutionize the world. He was worth over $10 billion. Steve Jobs died of pancreatic cancer at the age of 56. Brenda Barnes was listed in Forbes' list of the world's top 100 most powerful women. She was CEO of Pepsi-Cola North America. She later went on to become president and CEO of Sara Lee Corporation. She was on the board of directors of many Fortune 500 companies. While at Sara Lee, she had a base annual salary of $1 million and a total compensation package worth over $10 million. She was a mom, too. Then Brenda died of a stroke. She was just 63. Do you like Nutella? You know, that absolutely fantastic, delicious hazelnut spread? You probably have some in your house right now. Not exactly a health food, though. Its primary ingredients are sugar and palm oil. But it tastes so good, the Italian company that makes it sells over $12 billion worth of it and its related brands every year. Pietro Ferrero was co-CEO with his brother. Pietro had a personal net worth of billions of dollars. While out riding his bicycle one day, he had a heart attack and died at the age of 47. A simple Google search will reveal many, many stories just like these. Individuals who paid too high of a price for their success. In the business world, most of us are under daily pressure and stress to meet ever-increasing goals. We face more local and international competition than ever before. Pressures to balance work with home responsibilities add to the stress. And then after years of working, and when you finally think you've got everything under control, you're hit with a worldwide pandemic. As I work with people from all walks of life, something I consistently see is that the stresses that they face on a daily basis are taking a great toll. The price of success often comes at the expense of their physical health. They struggle with eating habits that are not the best, alcohol consumption that just adds more calories, and a number on the scale that just keeps going in one direction. And most of them have heard stories just like that of Steve, Brenda, and Pietro. And they just silently hope it's not going to happen to them. You know, surely the objective of working all those years isn't simply to have enough money to someday pay all your medical expenses. Isn't the ultimate goal to be able to relax a little, do what you want, and be healthy enough to enjoy it all? As I've gone through life, I found it ironic how many people strive for personal wealth, career success, and financial security only to ignore one of their most important possessions, their personal health. When it finally occurs to them later in life what their mixed-up priorities have cost them, they discover that their wealth can buy all the sick care in the world, but not restore the health they so much desire. Hey, can I see a show of hands right now? How many of you are starting to feel pretty depressed? I know, me too. Where'd they get this guy? The Downer Institute? Well, let me give you some very good news. What most people don't know is once they apply what I call the 4-2s principle, the results can be amazing. They can live a life with more energy, lose excess weight, avoid the biggest killer of Americans, and actually live long and well enough to enjoy the fruits of all their labor, and maybe even see their great-grandchildren grow up. Hey, everything's related. Yes, it's important to be healthy, but life isn't near as much fun if you're broke. You need money, but it's not of much value if you're sick. It has always seemed clear to me that financial and physical health are closely related. I'm not here today to show you how to make money. I'm here for people who already know how to make money but want to live long and well enough to enjoy the money they make. Our purpose here today is to identify your top health challenge and how to overcome it. A while back, I was invited to speak in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. I asked my mom if she knew where Dubai was, and she said, "Isn't that in Iowa?" I said, "No, Mom, that's Dubuque." I started my journey way out in Vancouver, Canada. From there, a little 9.5-hour flight to Amsterdam, Holland. A 3-hour layover there, followed by another 6-hour flight to Dubai. Whew. On a map, you'll find Dubai right on the Persian Gulf, wedged in between Saudi Arabia and Iran. It's the largest city in the country of the United Arab Emirates. Dubai is very Western friendly. They all speak English, and they actually like Americans too. In fact, they don't seem to be mad at anybody. You may have heard a little bit about Dubai. It's the home of the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building with 163 floors. It rises more than 2,700 feet, over a half-mile tall. It's twice as tall as the Empire State Building. It's home of the world's fastest elevator, too. It goes at 40 miles per hour. So I went up to the observation deck, and the elevator took less than 1 minute to get there. You don't really feel much, except your ears popping. At the base of the building is the Dubai Mall, featuring 1,200 stores. Yes, 1,200 stores. Some women go shopping in there and are never heard from again. Another mall close by has a built-in ski slope. Really? With snow and a ski lift and people wearing parkas. Keep in mind that Dubai is in the middle of the desert. Dubai is one of the top 10 richest countries in the world. You see a lot of expensive homes, big fast cars, and lots of gold. They even have gold vending machines. In case you're out shopping and you run low on gold. Don't you hate when that happens? But wealth doesn't necessarily mean health. Consider that the number one cause of death is cardiovascular disease, heart attack, and stroke. In that respect, they look just like Americans. Amazingly, 20% of the people in the United Arab Emirates have diabetes. It's only 10% in the U.S. But that number continues to grow in the U.S. every year as Americans continue to grow, if you know what I mean. Surprisingly, the number 2 cause of death in Dubai and that country comes from accidental causes, mostly from automobile accidents. Their death rate from auto accidents is among the highest in the world. A lot of young, fast drivers in very fast cars. And the number 3 cause of death? Cancer. Once again, they look a lot like Americans. One of the reasons they sort of look like Americans is because they like American food. As a matter of fact, anyone from the good old USA would feel right at home at dinner time. They've got all our favorites, including McDonald's, Burger King, Haagen-Dazs, and even Krispy Kreme. They have something I've never seen before, a Nutella store. A Nutella store. I'm not sure what they do there. Maybe they just give you a jar with a spoon. I'm not sure. Oh yes, they eat camel over there too. I didn't try any. I don't eat anything that requires a saddle. And it's very hot there too. Very hot. About 110 degrees when I was there. But it's a dry heat. So is my oven. They even have air-conditioned bus stops. As a result, the residents spend a lot of time indoors. Now, you'd think with all that sunshine, they'd get plenty of vitamin D. In fact, more than 80% of Dubai residents are deficient in vitamin D. Because of clothing customs, indoor work, and lack of vitamin D food fortification, most people don't get enough vitamin D. Most Americans don't either. So the point of all this is that wealth doesn't buy you health. That's good news since most of us don't have our own family oil well. Contrary to what a lot of people think, eating healthy food doesn't have to cost a lot. Yes, fresh produce can seem expensive compared to chips and soda, but based on their contribution to your health, fruits and vegetables are a bargain. The average American family spends $850 a year on soft drinks. $850. Maybe there is some money in the family budget for healthy food after all. So if you've already been to Disney World, you've seen the Grand Canyon, the Statue of Liberty, and the Golden Gate Bridge, maybe next time you'll consider a little trip to Dubai. They drive their big cars everywhere, there's lots of shopping malls, plenty of American food to eat, and they've got some of the best hospitals in the world. You'll feel right at home. As I work with those in the business world, a lot of them tell me every now and then they hear stories of colleagues who do everything right. They eat right, they exercise, and then totally out of the blue, they get hit with a heart attack. I'm a preventionist. That's a professional designation I made up, but it will be common 50 years from now. Someday, mothers will be disappointed if their children grow up only to be physicians, destined to deal with sick people their entire careers. Important, yes, but not near as impressive as if they became a preventionist, a health professional dedicated to helping people stay healthy in the first place. But if you fail with me, you have to go to a physician in a hospital. They have medicine, shots, and surgery. You know, we really don't have true health care in this country. We have sick care, but it's very good. But the system is not set up to reward prevention. You only get paid when you get sick, not when you stay well. Way back in 1903, Thomas Edison was concerned about the health care of his time, and he stated this: "The doctors of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patient in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease." Today, I want to show you how to prevent one of those surprise heart attacks. For close to 30 years now, I've helped people increase their performance and productivity by improving their health. As a health expert, I have the advantage of knowing the scientific facts and the latest research. But this isn't necessarily what helped me help others so much. What I do personally in my own life is what really has been the key for translating what I know into life-changing revelations for my clients and audiences. Being a speaker, author, and entrepreneur means being on the road a lot. I do some television and radio too. I have to sleep in a lot of different beds and eat out a lot. Most of my days aren't ruled by the type of schedule that allows for the ideal diet and exercise routine. And early in my career, that routine started taking its toll. Yes, even on me. I gained weight, my energy levels dropped, and I was starting to fulfill my genetic tendency. Heart attacks run in my family. When I was young, that's what my grandparents, uncles, and most of the others died from. I thought that's what everyone died from. I didn't know you had a choice. Later on, after I made my changes, my physicians told me if I hadn't made those changes, I would have had a stroke by the time I was 55. I'll share those changes with you today. So I've been following my heart health for many years. And way back in June of 95, as you can see, I had something called electronic beam computed tomography test done. That's the only technology we had back then. It's a lot of radiation, and it cost $500. We got something much better now. But back in 95, that's all we had to see if you had calcium in your coronary arteries. Calcium always means disease. So back then, I wanted to see what my status was. So I went to Chicago, where the machine was located, and you can see the results here. My left coronary artery was clean. My circumflex artery was clean. My right coronary was clean, but there was some disease already in the left anterior descending, a calcium score of 77. Now, we get concerned when your total calcium score is over 100. So the very first time I had this done, I already had a score of 77. Well, I went back 2 years later, and you can see the results. Now that 77 had become 100. Started to get some disease in the circumflex, but the left coronary is still clean. The right coronary was clean also. Remember, there's 4 main arteries. That's what we're looking at around your heart here. Well, I didn't like those results, so I decided to wait 6 years before I went back. And in June of 03, you can see what my numbers look like now. Still nothing in the left coronary. I wish I knew what I was doing right, because my left coronary is like a brand new baby's. But that left anterior descending, which they call the widowmaker, by the way, now has a calcium score of 215. The circumflex got 35, and the right coronary's got disease now, 77, for a total of 328. Remember, we get concerned when your calcium level goes over 100. Well, I waited 4 more years just hoping things would get better. And you can see the results the last time I had this test done. 300 in the Widowmaker now, 107 in the circumflex, right coronary's got 100, and that left coronary still stays clean and open. It's a mystery to me. The last time I had this test done, and remember, back in 07, my total was 508. The last time I had this test done, I have a calcium score of 1800. So I am off the charts. The disease is there. But as you're going to learn today, just because you have the disease does not mean you're going to have a heart attack or a stroke. We now know how to prevent the event from happening. You can live a long life with the disease if you know what to do. But I'm not here as someone who has survived a heart attack. I'm here as someone who prevented one. Now that's somebody you want to listen to. There's plenty of people out there who've had a heart attack and then changed their ways. I have cardiovascular disease. I have a lot of plaque in my coronary arteries. A lot. But we now know you can live with the disease and never have an event. That's a major shift in our understanding. You can have diseased vessels of the heart and never have a heart attack or stroke. I prevented a heart attack or stroke in the first place. And it's not just from taking a statin cholesterol pill. There's a lot more to it than that. By the way, a man in his 40s or 50s who takes an ED medication like Viagra or Cialis often thinks he has a sexual problem. What he probably has is a vascular problem. Because you see, this disease, atherosclerosis, what we used to call hardening of the arteries, doesn't just affect the arteries of the heart and brain, but it shows up in the smallest arteries of your body, like those in the penis. A man in his 40s or 50s who needs an ED medication is at an increased risk for an unexpected heart attack. By the way, the Food and Drug Administration has warned physicians not to prescribe Rogaine for hair loss with Viagra for erectile dysfunction. Otherwise, this could happen. Most people don't realize this, but as we've said, your number one health priority is to prevent a surprise heart attack. And as good as the medical system is, they're primarily in the business of helping you survive a heart attack, not prevent one. The problem is that the most common first symptom that something is wrong is that you die. I'll say that again. The most common first symptom that there's something wrong with your heart is that you die. Now, you may be saying, but David, I have one of the best doctors in the country. I even have a cardiologist, and I passed a stress test with flying colors. Did you know that you pass a stress test until your arteries are 70% blocked? 70%. If they're not 70% blocked, you pass. Do you really want to wait that long? Cardiovascular disease is the number one killer in America. Of adults, it's the big killer. Every 25 seconds, someone in America has a heart attack. Every minute, someone dies from one. Every 40 seconds, someone in the United States has a stroke. And 90% of those end up with some form of paralysis. If you've ever been to the Washington, D.C. Vietnam War Memorial, you may remember having quite an impact from that. I was surprised when I got there because I thought it was going to be some incredible piece of architecture, but as you know, it's just a wall. And I thought, this is what people are coming to see, but more people go to see the Vietnam War Memorial than see anything else in Washington, D.C. So I thought, what is it that they're coming here for? And you know the answer to that. It's the names. There's 58,000 names on the Vietnam War Memorial. We lost 58,000 boys and girls during our decade or so of involvement in Vietnam. And what I find to be even more of a tragedy than that war was is the fact that that's the same number of people, listen to this, 58,000 is the same number of people that die from heart attacks and strokes in the United States every 5 weeks. Every 5 weeks, we have another Vietnam War in the United States. And you don't hear much about it because it often happens to people in their 60s and 70s and 80s, but it's starting to happen to people now in their 50s and 40s. You may know somebody like that. You may have heard of a story like that. And the sad thing is, 5 weeks later, it happens again. Another 58,000 dead. And 5 weeks later, it happens again. 58,000 people die from something that today is mostly preventable. And you're going to learn the fundamental reason why we have so much cardiovascular disease in this country. And it's not because your cholesterol numbers are too high. Ladies, some of you may know, but most women don't realize that heart disease kills more women now than men. According to the American Heart Association, only 44% of women realize it's their number one health threat. Yes, it's still the big killer of men, but it kills more women now than men. And yes, your cholesterol number is important, but not that much. And yes, your LDL and HDL, triglycerides, you should know all those. But we now understand that there is an underlying disease that is the foundation of most heart attacks. It gets to the very cause of why your arteries get diseased in the first place. And I'll tell you what that underlying disease is in just a moment. But first, let's talk about lifestyle. If you'll follow what I call the 4 2s principle, it makes things a lot easier. That stands for 2 hours of exercise a week, 2 kinds of food, 2 days a week, and 2 meals a day. I'll explain. Lifestyle should always be first. That's all many people need. But many people get a false sense of security from lifestyle. They eat right, they run marathons, and then one day you hear that they died. For many of us, lifestyle is not enough. Yes, you need to stop smoking. Most of you don't smoke. Good. If you still do and you want to stop, the key seems to be in continuing to try. Listen, most people who finally kicked the habit were a dismal failure their first several attempts. The average person finally successfully gets off tobacco on their 4th or 5th serious attempt. So keep on trying. You may be closer to success than you even know. You can see our attitude about smoking has changed a lot over the years. Physicians used to promote cigarettes, especially unfiltered Camels. And did you see this on YouTube? Apparently this man doesn't want COVID interfering with his lung cancer. And yes, what you eat is important too. There's really only 2 kinds of food in the grocery store: real food and fun food. You should eat real food 5 days a week. You know what they are: fruits and vegetables, a protein source like chicken, fish, or beans, whole grains, and a calcium source like milk or one of the many milk substitutes out there today. Eat food closer to the way it grows. Ask yourself, does a Twinkie grow that way? Okay, we're supposed to eat more fruits and vegetables, but what about all the pesticides? Doesn't that do away with any benefits we get from eating them? Well, yes, organic is better. But I can't get America to eat enough fruits and vegetables to begin with. Now I'm going to tell them to pay twice as much for organic? That's not going to work. If you've got plenty of money, buy organic. But let's put things in perspective. The people that study this kind of thing tell us pesticides and herbicides are not as big of a deal as many people think. If everyone in America would eat just 1 extra serving of fruit or vegetable a day, everyone in America just eat 1 serving of fruit or vegetable a day extra, we would lose 9 lives from cancer per year from an increase from the pesticides and herbicides in cancer risk. But we would save 20,000 lives a year because of the benefits of the fruits and vegetables. Again, we would lose some people because of cancer from the pesticides. 9, actually. But because of the health benefits of the fruits and vegetables, we would save 20,000 a year from dying from cancer every year. I hope that puts things in perspective for you. I wash my produce before I eat it, but I don't buy organic. And I eat lots of vegetables and fruits. So should you. So that's real food. Then there's fun food. Most of the grocery store is made up of fun food, packaged, highly processed. If you have to eat them, you get those 2 days a week, on weekends, just for fun. That's why they're called fun food. When I sometimes go to a friend's house, I can't believe what some people eat. I mean, I like Doritos, but not served as a vegetable. Yes, you can have fun food 2 days a week. It's okay. You don't have to get everything right all the time. Relax a little bit. One more subcategory of fun food is funny food. Most of these are found in the cereal section. You can have these once a year on your birthday. So remember, there's only really two kinds of food. There's real food, and then there's fun food. So here's Quaker Oats. Good old-fashioned Quaker Oats. This is real food, close to the way it grows. A great product. I like this a lot. But they don't leave things alone. They take it a little bit too far, and the same people bring you Captain Crunch, Cotton Candy Crunch. Crunchicize me, Captain. You know, when I was a boy, if you wanted cotton candy, you had to go to the circus. Now it's in the cereal section. You have peanut butter, a good, basic, real food. And nuts, always a good snack. Nuts are God's snack food, is what they are. And you know how inconvenient it is when you got to go to the candy section and buy your Hershey's Kisses, and then you got to go to the cereal section and buy your cereal? Don't worry. Now they put it all together in one for you with Hershey's Kisses cereal, candy and cereal in one box. God bless America. Now, you all know Bugles, of course. What a fine snack food, fun food, weekend food. It's made with degermed yellow cornmeal because you wouldn't want any germs in your cornmeal. And a lot of people aren't aware that you can actually play an instrument. But I've been practicing a lot. Don't try that at home. Now let's talk about weight control. Since the 1960s, just in the United States, the average man's weight has gone from 166 pounds to 191 pounds. Here's an example. Look at this ad for Action Pants by Sansabelt. Now, if the average man back then was weighing about 160, 165, in that area somewhere, today you'd call that guy skinny. But that was what the average man used to weigh back 50 years ago. Now look at this ad. This is a very interesting ad. It says Action Pants by Sansabelt. But if you look closely, there's some couple of interesting points here. It says a man of action needs to wear pants of action. Sansabelt, the only slack with the patented action zone. Just look, and do you notice where the action zone is? I'm not sure what that means. And down in the right-hand corner, look, it says now with extra large snack sack. What is a snack sack? And how come I don't have one? Anyway, you can buy this. It's made out of 100% all-natural Dacron, so that's good. And it's available at Shemsley's department store. But look, it's very confusing. Even the poodle is confused. During the same time, the average woman's weight has gone from 140 pounds to 164 pounds. The average woman today weighs what the average man used to back in 1960. And by the way, there's more pressure on women and girls to lose weight. Some women don't want to just get to a healthy weight. They won't be satisfied till they actually get back to their original weight. 8 pounds, 3 ounces. The average 10-year-old today is 10 pounds heavier than they were back in the 1960s. The average teenage girl is 10 pounds heavier than they were back then, and the average teenage boy weighs 15 more pounds than his counterpart did back then. Remember, those are averages. And 1 out of 3 kids in the United States is now overweight already. When you and I were little, you may remember there was 1 overweight kid in the class. There was 1 in the class. Today, it's 1/3 of the class. 1/3 of the kids in the class are overweight. A lot of Americans are bigger, much bigger. Manufacturers of crash test dummies have had to redesign their products as a result. Old models represented a person weighing 169 pounds. New models will simulate a human at 270 pounds. The good news is that you don't ever have to get back to your ideal weight to actually see some major improvements in your health. Slightly decreasing calories, along with losing just a few extra pounds, can make a big difference in your health. Just losing 5% of your body weight can also dramatically decrease your risk of heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, and if you're a woman, breast cancer. Keep in mind, if you weigh 200 pounds, a 5% weight loss is just 10 pounds. That's a lot of potential health benefits from losing just a little bit of weight. So stop thinking that you have to get back to what you weighed in high school. It's not necessary. Besides, there's a problem with the bathroom scale in that it just tells you weight loss. It doesn't tell you what the weight loss is. It could be muscle. You never want to lose muscle. It could be water, but that's temporary. And it could be fat, and that's what you want to lose. Body fat is the problem. But you could have a 6-foot man who's 200 pounds and solid muscle. And the doctor will look on a height and weight table for 6 foot, 200 pounds, and if he's not paying attention, he'll say to the guy, "You're overweight." Really? Where is he supposed to lose weight? He's solid muscle. He doesn't have any fat on him. On the other hand, you could have a 6 foot, 180 pound middle-aged businessman who sits most of the day and who's got a little belly starting to hang over his belt. And the doctor will look at 6 foot, 180 pounds and say, "Not bad." What? Clearly, your eyes will tell you. One of them is in good shape and the other is not. But the height and weight table has some real limitations because the scale has some limitations as well. It just measures weight, not what that weight is made up of. We've got something better, and it's the tape measure. I would encourage all of you to get a tape measure and put less emphasis on your bathroom scale. Because the tape measure will tell you where the real problem is. And if you carry it here in the middle, that's the problem. Ladies, you might not like it back here on your hips, but that's not going to hurt you near as much as gut fat does. Consider, if you would, that the greater your waist size, the greater your risk for these problems in your future. High blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, metabolic syndrome, which is a whole bunch of cholesterol risk factors together. And can you believe this? Asthma. Your risk for asthma goes up the greater your waist size. And chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, things like bronchitis and emphysema. By the way, your waist size is a much better predictor of your future health than the old height and weight table, and even the fancy BMI, the body mass index that so many people like today. Your waist size is better. You need to realize that gut fat is very dangerous fat. Gut fat is moving in and out of your blood system all the time. Hip fat is not dangerous because once it's back there, ladies, would you agree? It likes it back there. It's in the shade back there, it's cool, it has a lemonade, and it stays there for 50 years. But gut fat is moving in and out all the time, which can be good sometimes. Ladies, have you ever noticed that if you're doing a weight loss program with the man in your life, he has a much easier time of losing weight than you do? Why is that? It's because of where he's getting his calories from, right here. The downside is that it's also raising his triglyceride levels, it's raising his bad LDL, and all these other things that increase his risk of a heart attack, which is why, in general, the average man lives about 7 years less than the average woman. Now, here are the numbers I want you to write down. Ladies, you first. Ladies, we don't want your waist size to go over 35 inches. Gentlemen, for you, you don't want your waist size to go over 40 inches. When it does, you're most likely going to have one of those diseases I just mentioned in your future. Now, this brings up another question. How do you measure waist size? Sitting where you are right now, will you please see if you can feel two bones sitting about right here at the top of your pelvis? It's called the iliac crest. Now, if you can't find those bones, that's another risk factor right there. Press harder. So find those two bones and then measure at that point, parallel to the floor, all the way around your waist. I want you to compare that to what your measurements should be. So let's get back to our main point. Remember, your number one health priority is to prevent a surprise heart attack. We looked at the importance of lifestyle. We discussed the importance of not smoking, the food you eat, and your body composition. But the real underlying cause of heart disease is not cholesterol, not your bad cholesterol, not being overweight. It is, in fact, something called insulin resistance. It's actually high insulin that causes your artery walls to become inflamed and diseased. Insulin resistance is also the same reason it's so hard to lose weight. And statistically, about half of you here have insulin resistance. It's also called prediabetes. And hold on if you think everything is fine because you know your blood sugar levels are always good. We'll address that in just a minute. Age is the biggest driver of insulin resistance. 50% of those over the age of 50 have it, but it's very prevalent now in younger people too. First, here's some background. Insulin is a hormone produced by your pancreas that allows the blood sugar to enter the cells of your body. Now keep in mind the sugar in your blood is just digested food. It's not bad, as long as it doesn't get too high. But as you gain weight, as you become more sedentary, and especially as you get older, the cells of your body become less responsive to the insulin. Your cells become insulin resistant. They see the insulin in your blood, but they don't respond to it like they should. As a result, the sugar in your blood stays high. To compensate for this, your pancreas produces even more insulin. Insulin levels of the blood go up, and finally the cells respond and let the blood sugar in. The problem with all this, and this is the point, is that high insulin levels in your blood send a signal to the fat cells of your body to produce more fat and keep fat from being released. Exactly the opposite of what you want if you're trying to lose weight. And again, those high insulin levels are damaging the walls of your arteries at the same time. That can lead to a heart attack or stroke. Ironically, all the time this is going on, your fasting blood sugar levels may appear normal when tested by your doctor. Your A1C levels may be normal as well. How's that possible? Your pancreas simply starts working overtime by producing extra insulin to keep your blood sugar numbers normal. But your insulin levels are going too high. You can have high insulin levels for years without ever knowing any symptoms. Eventually, your pancreas can't produce what you need anymore. Then your doctor tells you have diabetes. But you don't suddenly just get diabetes one day. You develop it over years. If you have insulin resistance, you're doing it right now. When the pancreas can no longer do its job, you're given finally the diagnosis of diabetes. So what you need to do is catch this problem long before the doctor gives you that bad news. So how do you tell if you have insulin resistance? The best test is what's called a 4-hour glucose tolerance with insulin response test. It's now available at Quest Labs around the U.S., but your physician has to order it for you. But an even simpler way to determine if you have insulin resistance is to simply look at your most recent blood work results and take your blood triglyceride level number and divide it by your good HDL cholesterol number. Again, triglyceride number divided by your good HDL cholesterol number. For example, someone with a triglyceride level of 120 and an HDL of 55 would have a result of about 2.18. If the answer is over a value of 2, you probably have insulin resistance. Again, when you take your triglyceride number and you divide it by your HDL number and you get an answer of over 2, you probably have insulin resistance. So that's your homework. That's the main takeaway from our talk today. Get the blood work or just apply the formula and see if you have insulin resistance. As I said, it's estimated that at least 50% of adults over the age of 50 have insulin resistance or prediabetes. And if you have it, you need to know. The Centers for Disease Control says that about 90% of these people are not aware they have it. And the numbers are surprisingly high for younger people, too. Remember, our goal here is to help you prevent a surprise heart attack. But with insulin resistance, the odds are against you. So, how do you fix this? To restore your cell's insulin sensitivity, insulin levels need to come down. How do you do that? Something you may have heard about called intermittent fasting seems to be an effective method. By eating in a smaller window of time during the day, you allow your cells to rest from constant exposure to insulin. That makes them more responsive again when insulin finally does come along. Exercise also helps restore insulin sensitivity. Those with insulin resistance seem to respond best to diets that are lower in carbohydrates, especially those carbs that are refined and contain simple sugars. If you're an average American, you're eating a good amount of those, what we call fun foods, already. They probably also will have more success in losing weight if they eat less bread, cereal, rice, potatoes, and fruit juices. Now, intermittent fasting comes in several varieties. First is the 5-2 plan. In this approach, people dramatically cut their calories 2 days out of 7 in the week. On those 2 days, they may eat anywhere from just 500 to 600 calories, or they may eat nothing at all. On the other 5, they consume their normal intake. For some people, this actually does seem to be easier than a daily restriction of calories, as in a traditional low-calorie diet. Then there's the 16-8 approach. In this version, food is consumed in a window of approximately 8 hours, followed by a fast the next 16 hours. It appears that the body starts burning fat somewhere in the 9 to 12 hours after your last meal, depending on the size of that meal. Many people find that skipping breakfast is a good way to apply this approach. Since an individual is theoretically sleeping about 8 hours a night, and then if no breakfast is consumed, the first meal of the day would be in the late morning or at noon. Another snack or light meal in the mid-afternoon is followed in the early evening by the final meal, all within the 8-hour window. Some recent research suggests that an 18-6 pattern is even better. That is, eating your 2 meals in a 6-hour window. For many people, intermittent fasting every day seems to be easier than a full-day fast twice a week. But wait a minute, David, is it okay to skip breakfast? You've probably heard it's the most important meal of the day. Many older studies associated skipping breakfast with a higher risk of obesity and other health problems. But as in so many human observational studies, cause and effect is not proven. It could be that overweight people have poor eating habits, one of which is skipping meals. That doesn't mean that skipping breakfast caused the obesity. There are plenty of thin people out there who don't eat anything in the morning. I'm one of them. The importance of breakfast for adults has been overemphasized. In fact, a new study published in the British Medical Journal concluded that in adults, quote, breakfast may not be a good strategy for weight loss, close quote. Many people find the intermittent fasting approach, combined with a reduced carbohydrate intake, gives them a formula for success. Of course, it's still important to emphasize eating less fried, processed, and sugary foods. Emphasis should be on eating more vegetables, lean protein, and higher fiber foods. Healthy fats like nuts and their butters are also a good idea as well. And as always, it's important to drink water and stay hydrated when you're doing any form of fasting. And it's always good to clear any changes in your diet with your physician and registered dietitian, especially if you have any medical conditions. Those individuals who are dependent upon insulin or taking blood sugar lowering medications should especially be cautious. And yes, pregnant and breastfeeding women also have higher nutritional needs than normal and need to consult a physician before starting such a routine. Now, having said all that, most studies on intermittent fasting in humans have been of short duration and with small numbers of subjects. And as of now, intermittent fasting does not seem to be superior to traditional calorie restriction diets as far as weight loss is concerned. And some research suggests that you may be more likely to lose more muscle on this type of diet, so it's very important that you get adequate protein and exercise. But you still can decrease insulin resistance and the inflammation that goes along with it. That's going to be good for your heart. The key difference between intermittent fasting seems to be that it's easier for people to follow. That could be the difference between failure and success. You know, since I graduated with my master's degree in nutrition many years ago, I've been taught that carbohydrates are good for you. That was the official government line. If you remember the food pyramid, the foundation was based on breads, cereals, and other carbohydrates. I ate lots of whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta, and fruits and vegetables. I was a big cereal eater as well. I did what I was told, and eventually my weight went up to almost 200 pounds. But a lot of us can't handle carbs like when we were younger. If you're like me and are over 50, there's a good chance you have insulin resistance. It turns out I had it too. I've now dramatically cut down on carbohydrates. I eat my first meal in the morning around 11:30, and I eat dinner at about 6 p.m. Maybe a light snack in the mid-afternoon. And that's it. It did work for me. I lost 21 pounds over about 5 months and have kept it off for several years now. For weight loss, those people with insulin resistance do better on a low carbohydrate diet. Get rid of the added sugars. Cut down on starches and grains. Surprisingly, in today's grocery store, even whole wheat bread is highly processed. While it contains all the components of the whole grain, it still gets quickly digested and can raise blood glucose levels. That makes your insulin levels go up. Eat less pastas and ready-to-eat cereals as well. Fortunately, you don't have to be so concerned about the carbs in non-starchy vegetables. Eat as many vegetable-based dishes as you can. And while exercise is absolutely essential for good health, it by itself does not equal weight loss. Diet is where the potential is for losing weight. So there's our 4 twos principle. There's 2 kinds of food, real food and fun food. You get fun food 2 days a week. And if you need to lose weight or have insulin resistance, eat 2 meals a day. And don't forget to exercise at least 2 hours a week. You've heard it said that knowledge is power, but that's not right. It's the application of knowledge that is power. The application of knowledge is true wisdom. Knowledge is to be aware of the fact that a tomato is actually a fruit and not a vegetable. That's knowledge. Wisdom is knowing not to use the tomato in a fruit salad. Will you apply what you learned here today? That's wisdom. On December 8th, in 1978, I was away at school working on my undergraduate degree in nutrition. It was 5 minutes after midnight. I was in bed. My phone rang. It was my pastor calling from back home. This was unusual. He had never called me while I was away at school, much less in the middle of the night. He said, "David, you need to come home. It's your dad. He's in the hospital." So the next morning I got dressed, got in my 1971 Gremlin. Here I am next to it. Fortunately, I was able to find a suit that matched my car. That's not easy to do. Well, I made the 100-mile drive back to my hometown. But by the time I got there, my dad had died from complications of a heart attack. He was not overweight, he wasn't a smoker, and he wasn't a couch potato either. But he made one mistake. He assumed that because he felt good, everything was okay. It wasn't. That one event changed my entire life. It's one of the reasons I do what I do today. It's why I'm here talking to you today. I've spent the last 25 years helping people avoid what happened to my dad. This is my dad. His name was Gilbert Meinz. He was a good provider for my mom and sister and me. We were living the average American family life. It was good. And then one day he just died. He was 56 years old. My mom became a widow at 52. 52 is too young to be a widow. I was 24. My little sister was just 16. You know, it's hard enough to figure out life when you're a teenager, even more so when you lose a parent. Yes, there was money in the bank. There was insurance. My mom is still getting benefits from my dad's pension. That's all wonderful. I'm sure you've taken the correct steps to provide your family too. But you know what? At his funeral, that's not what we were thinking about. We wanted him. After my dad died, a couple of years later, my mom got remarried. This is my mom and her new husband. He may not look new to you, but he's new to her. I kind of think he looks like Uncle Fester, but that's my opinion. Well, years have gone by and he's gone now too. My mom has buried 2 husbands, but she's a survivor. Here's my mom today at 94. I hope I got more of my mom's genes than my dad's. What happened to my dad was the inspiration for me to take control of my health. It was my why. I didn't want to end up like my dad. My grandfather and great-grandfather all died of cardiovascular disease too. I had a choice. I could have just repeated the same thing that killed all the men in my family. Just took it easy. Don't worry about it. I mean, you got to die of something anyway. But I didn't take that attitude. I didn't want to end up like them. So I studied. I got a master's degree. And I applied what I know to my personal life. And now, even though I have cardiovascular disease, it's under control. Listen, even if you have heart disease, we now know how to keep you from ever having an event. Ever. That's a bold statement. But that's where the science is now. That's big news, and that application of knowledge is wisdom. You have a personal financial plan, but do you have a physical plan? I don't mean you just go for an annual physical at your doctor's office. I don't mean you think everything is okay just because your physician tells you you're doing okay. My dad was doing okay too. If you are financially secure, good. But then what? If you retire between 65 and 70, you may still have another 20 or 25 years of life left. What if you're not well enough to enjoy that last third of your life? That's a long time to sit at home and watch Wheel of Fortune. What does that money mean then? Make sure you have the quality of life that will allow you to fulfill your dreams. But I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Before you can finally be successful in making the changes you need, you must first identify your why of what you want to change. I'm amazed at the number of people I meet that won't improve their health for their own benefit. They just won't do it. But they'll do it for their kids or their grandkids. That's fine with me. I don't care what your motivation is. You just need to identify what it is. Maybe it's to finally get to travel around the country in an RV with your spouse. See America. Maybe it's to take a cruise around the world. Or maybe your why is to see your kids and grandkids grow up, to see them get married, to be successful. I found that for most people, their why is their family. When all is said and done, for most people, their family is their most valuable possession. God and family first, everything else second. So for those of you out there with children and grandchildren, let me speak for them. We need you. We want to grow up with you. Don't leave us early. Stay healthy for us. Let me ask you this. What if, in addition to getting yourself healthier, you started helping your employees or members stay healthier too? You not only help assure your organization's health, but your employees or members' personal health as well. Would that make your organization stand out from the competition? You can do that. I can help you do that. Feel free to contact me. I'll show you how. You have two choices. Number one, you can have $1 million in the bank, $1 million. But you have stage 4 cancer, and they say you're going to live like this for the next 3 years. Or, number two, you're absolutely healthy and vibrant, brimming with energy and full of life. But you have no money in the bank, and all you'll ever make is $40,000 a year for the rest of your life. Which would you choose? Which is more valuable, wealth or health? You can have both, but health must be your first goal. For without it, the wealth is nothing more than paper and possessions. It's my pleasure to be working together with you toward that goal. I'm David Meinz. Thank you.